a term called ontological violence.
Mhm.
And like you just said before, it's an academic paper, and this jumps out to me as a practitioner as a very academic term.
Mhm.
But when I read and you did, the term motivated me to go and read up a bit about it. And it's actually talking to a really fundamentally important issue for anyone dealing in cross-cultural space.
Mm.
But rather than me attempt to
Okay.
interpret what I now understand it to be as a practitioner in the space, can you just expand on that a bit? And in what I'd call simple, user-friendly practitioner language, why is it? What does it mean?
So, first of all, I'll acknowledge that the term itself comes from the Cherokee author Polly Walker, who is a mediator and academic. Uh, and basically, if if you are, we all have different ways of constructing, creating reality. So that we know a thing is outside of us, the method that we know the thing, that's the sort of what the framework is for that. So in the West, the science is starting to challenge us a bit through quantum mechanics and the various very weird conversations like superposition, etc. And that's challenging our ontology. So um, uh, a Christian ontology might be the fundamental presence of um, the creator in everything, or the fundamental presence of the devil in many things. These provide ways of seeing the world, ways of explaining the world. A recent sort of controversy has been around the dark emu indigenous people as agriculturalists versus indigenous people as managing country in a different way. And so the vehemence of the debate, I think, points to the importance of the notion of ontology and how you might approach it. Um, and certainly in mediation, we're not going to front a situation and go, "You're wrong, I'm right. This is the reality," and measure the positions against that. That might be what you call an information dispute, and then maybe at some point, some way through that. But generally, that's not what the situation is. Uh, and so, in order for people to hear, see, and feel what they're saying to each other, I think you've got to be very careful about bringing your system of uh, creating reality to the table. It may help you get perspective, but if you start imposing it on others, then that's difficult. And the challenge, I think, is where the imposition is just simply, um, uh, not you're not aware of it. You're conducting your activities in a situation where the thought procedures in your head belong to the Enlightenment, and you're thinking about progress, and that's not what's playing out in front of you.
You referred to as a dark emu, or someone is attempting to impose a, uh, a, a way of life that is totally unrelated to the history that exists. The point that jumped out to me, and you make it, I think, quite well in the paper, is the danger or the damage that can be done by walking into a space with your model and solutions.
Mm.
And
Mm.
again, I know in previous discussions you and I have had, that's an important thematic to your work, which is you take a model, and we're going to explore this in the next few minutes, but you take the model that you learned, but you use a whole different set of processes and approaches of interpreting it when in the space of a culture that is unrelated to the model that developed it.
Ken, so a good explanation was what you framed as the problem between Dark Emu and um, Peter Sutton's work to counter that. And so you framed the adversarial argument very well, I think. You know, there's a history, it doesn't match that, you've got to back down, you're wrong, kind of thing. Versus if I had Sutton, now I've forgotten his name, sorry, Dark Emu author. If you had those gentlemen in a room, knowing their personalities, that would be a very difficult conversation to manage. But the starting point wouldn't be their starting point is who's right and who's wrong, but what's behind it? What exactly is the purpose of the Dark Emu story, and what is the purpose of the Sutton story? How do they come together and diverge? And in terms of having a conversation, why are they in the room? You know, so if there's a kind of accommodation that might be arrived at, how would that work? How would they speak to each other? How could you help them have that conversation? And that'd be quite challenging, I think.
Yes, yeah, I'll leave that one to you.